Happy Wednesday. We're all back together again. Who would have thought? Who would have guessed that? Joey and I have yet to react to the Chargers game. I'm talking like it was a loss. It was a win. I don't know why I keep doing this, guys. But welcome. Let's talk Broncos. Bree Maestas, Joey Richards, Zach Seegers. Russell Wilson got benched for Jarrett Stidham, and ultimately it wasn't a huge change in where all of our feelings land with this team as they won their second to last game. They also were simultaneously eliminated from playoffs. They had a small percentage chance to get it done. Sean Payton wanted a spark to the offense, decided to go with Jarrett Stidham, and now we're all sitting here scratching our heads how to talk about that final Raiders game in Las Vegas. Let's get your thoughts on it first and foremost. Joey, anything you wanted to conclude with from last week's win against the Chargers?
Yes, I want to conclude that every game I've been to is a Broncos win. If you are a Broncos supporter, you should be trying to get me to the games. That's the big conclusion that I had to throw out there. But otherwise, there was some pretty interesting news with the Russell Wilson benching and Jarrett Stidham starting. I guess we can get to that. Jarrett Stidham, I thought he looked like – I thought the processing was clearly better than Russell Wilson, but the accuracy really hit the ground hard. Like, the accuracy was bad. He was going through his reads okay. He was seeing who he was supposed to throw to on time and everything like that. It was just the accuracy let him down. I'm hoping that with more reps as, the 1A on the Broncos, that will come to improve, I'm hoping. Because otherwise, I honestly thought he looked okay. Was it much better than what Russell Wilson brought? No. And I honestly was probably worse by a little bit. But the main takeaway is that it didn't kill the Broncos. The Broncos offense stayed the same. Like, what is the big takeaway from that? It's that how much was Russell Wilson helping this Broncos offense in the long run is kind of how I came away from that game. Was he the reason the Broncos were winning games, or were the Broncos winning games just with Russell Wilson? Two major differences there. That was kind of my main takeaway from that one. Bree, what were your thoughts?
Well, Zach was trying to talk, but he was yet again muted. So I'll go ahead and don't worry, I was just watching you over here. Joey, you kind of nailed it on the head. I don't think there was an appreciable difference, but there wasn't really anything. I don't know. It was kind of sad to watch it take place. There wasn't anything exciting from it. I think what it did is just anger the masses on both sides of the issue. There's a lot of people who still think Russ was done dirty, and we can talk about that and the contract and what it means moving forward for the Broncos. But I don't think the Broncos were dirty for going and asking Russell Wilson, hey, your play hasn't been amazing to warrant this contract. And in addition, it was just the injury clause. So let's get that point all straight. And Zach has wonderful breakdowns on both of those. If you go on over to Let's Talk Broncos, you can actually watch his much more researched and detailed explanation of what that is. But in the end of the day, it wasn't anything that the Broncos can bank on for the future. They don't know who their quarterback is going to be. I don't think Jarrett Stidham is auditioning for a role here with the Broncos as the starting quarterback, nor do I think anyone in Broncos country thinks that either. But it wasn't a change over end of what was happening. So I wasn't what is it when someone gives you not motivation? I wasn't inspired by the play by Jarrett Stidham, but I also don't think that there was enough of a difference between him and Russell Wilson to warrant people being outraged by the decision. I mean, there's just a star power name at some point. I think Sean Payton believed enough in Jarrett Stidham that he that he was okay with rolling with Jarrett for the rest of the season, because they still want to get to 9 wins. I don't think that the Broncos are out here just throwing it all away. I think they could still make it. I'm sorry. Mealy is breaking out in the back behind the scenes here at Let's Talk Broncos, and I actually can't function without it. So
can I just
we're having technical difficulties.
Yeah, please do, Joe.
Yeah.
I was trying to share the YouTube link, right? What ended up happening, and everybody in the chat right now, you missed out on a great opportunity. I shared the StreamYard link, which means that anybody could have popped in there.
I was waiting for someone to click it.
We could have seen anybody's face just in this. Talking Broncos with this. I don't know, guys. Would we have kicked the person if they joined?
Depends on the person.
Yeah. I think at some
you
point, yeah, you know exactly who you are. But I think at some point we will do that. But I was for the last, I'm sweating for the last 3.5 minutes. I was wondering if someone was going to crash the show, if they were going to share the link elsewhere, and anybody could have jumped on and decided to hack our stream. They didn't, and we've gone ahead and avoided that catastrophe. So thank you guys for getting that all squared away. Gary Fire had an interesting point here. Russ sells tickets and jerseys. He does. And at the end of the day, that's not what I think is important. Guys, any comments to that?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Zach. Go ahead. I have something I want to ask you guys off of this after.
All right. I think that's not what the Penners are about. I think obviously they want to make money off of this, but these NFL franchises print money. They don't have to play the games that maybe Paul Brown Jr. or no, it's not Paul Brown Jr. It's Mike Brown. Excuse me, Mike Brown or the Bidwells or the Spanoses or Mark Davis have to play, where it's like, hey, this is kind of our revenue stream. We really have to keep our eye on this at all times. And how are we going to like penny pinch and make dollars and everything? And I think at that point, like the Chargers going into a new stadium in LA, I think having Justin Herbert, having some marquee names is very valuable to them. I don't think the Broncos have to play that game. And so I think they're in the position where they have the luxury of going, hey, let's play the best players. And I don't think it's crazy to think Jarrett Stidham might be better in Sean Payton's offense than Russell Wilson. I don't think we're going to get that from a 2-game sample. The 1-game sample, which is way too small and is going to be swung wildly by singular plays like Jordan Humphrey going absolutely mental. So it's flawed to look at a 1-game sample. The 1-game sample would suggest the gap between Jarrett Stidham and Russell Wilson is about the same as the gap between Patrick Mahomes and Derek Carr this season. Which again, I think that's a little ridiculous, but the value of, I think, having this offense a little more on schedule is 100% there. No 3 and outs this game. First time that's happened all season. I don't think that's purely coincidental. Joey highlighted one of the problems with Stidham, the accuracy. It was really bad. He's right now looking like one of the least accurate quarterbacks in the league per CPOE, which is a good like accuracy metric, completion percentage over expectation. Last year, though, he was 3rd. He was incredibly accurate during his time to shine with the Raiders. So I don't know. I think maybe he just was a little rusty, and now he's getting some more reps. Hopefully we see that come back to where we saw it with the Raiders. The other thing that hasn't been getting talked about, he was just as bad as Russell Wilson at creating sacks. And Russell Wilson was the worst starting quarterback in the league in that regard. So he's got to get better there. Fortunately, that's another area where he was much better last year in Las Vegas. So fingers crossed.
Here's the question I want to ask you guys. So I want to take away the idea, like our opinion on whether Russ should have been benched or not. And I think people have heard enough about that on the podcast. But I want to ask you guys, if this was a first-time head coach, and now seeing the whole PR war going on between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, do you think they would have had the job security one, or just the flat out like goal and like to bench Russell Wilson right now? I ask this because I personally think that if this was a first-time head coach, it would look a lot uglier out here. If this coach didn't have the amount of job security Sean Payton did, I think this benching might be even harsher for that guy. So I'm curious what your guys' opinion is on that.
I think it's interesting because you have to talk about the trust first and foremost between the Walton Penner Group and Sean Payton. If he, brought that idea up, but we don't know exactly where the idea originated from. Obviously, there's talk of it being contract related, and then there's talk of it being football related. And regardless of your feelings of Sean Payton and what you think his relationship with Russell Wilson is, there had to have been some hesitation coming in as a coach. And you're right, Joey. I think if it was a first-time coach, the level of leeway and the leash that's been assigned there would be a lot shorter. Has Sean Payton done enough to prove in his career with a Super Bowl win, but also with leaving the New Orleans Saints and the cap situation that way were, allow them the opportunity to be trusted with these gigantic decisions based on not only just the starting quarterback, but how the roster will look moving forward. That is a huge designation because it's not just about who's behind center. It's about how you're able to build a team moving forward. Zach.
And so one thing, the Saints salary cap hell, in my opinion, happened after Sean Payton. When he was there, it was like kind of maximizing the Drew Brees window, and they ultimately didn't get a Super Bowl done, but they were a top 3 contender in the NFC year in and year out. And I think that's okay to do. I think the problem has arisen when after he's left, they decided not to just like take their medicine, which I think if you want to pry that door open for like 5-6 years and know, hey, down the line of this awesome championship window, we're going to hurt some. That's okay. I think the problem now is they've just refused to take their medicine and it's getting nastier. I don't know. I think a rookie coach might have been able to. I think it would have been much harder. I think this blowback would have reflected much worse on them. And maybe that leash would be getting shorter now and they'd have issues. But Russell Wilson lost a lot he was the most powerful person in this organization the moment that trade happened. And I think by the end of last season, I don't know who, I think there was a power vacuum because I think he lost whatever sway he had. Maybe not all of it, but a lot of it. And that's why ownership had no problem bringing in Sean Payton, who, based off reports coming out this week, Sean Payton was like, hey, I'm going to try my best with Russell Wilson, but I'm not super optimistic. And I want to be able to get out of it if possible. And the Penner group was fine with that. Maybe they wouldn't have been with a different first-time head coach, but I don't know how you come away from last season, as bad as Hackett was. Russ was part of that mess too. I don't know how you could have come away from that and been like, it's Russ no matter what. I think Sean Payton made it a lot easier, but I still think the right rookie coach, especially an offensive minded one, like if it's Shane Steichen and he's like, this just isn't working, I feel like they probably would have listened to him, but I don't know.
I think they would have ultimately listened to him, but here's where it gets difficult, is that if you're a first-time head coach, your leash, I think, is less than it is with Sean Payton. So now if I get rid of Russell Wilson this year and I have a really poor performance next year, I'm first one up gone. Whereas I don't think Sean really has to deal with that to the point. So it makes it easier for Sean to make a decision like this. A first-time head coach probably is riding out with Russell Wilson this year, and I would bet neck going into next year too, just because they don't even want to take that risk of, hey, we cannot get worse than what we were. We had a winning season this year. We can't get worse. We're going to build onto this and see how far it takes us. I don't think they could have taken that risk.
I think the risk is, the risk is worse the other way. You're signing up for your entire coaching tenure, 3 years, to be staked on Russell Wilson at that point. I think that's a worse risk.
But you're year by year at that point. That's kind of why.
No, because the guarantee gets enacted. You're locked in for 2 years after this if you keep him.
I know, but you could just get fired. That's what I'm saying. Like when I say year by year, if that doesn't work out, you're just gone. Whereas if Russ plays at mid, you have a mid chance of you have a pretty good shot at staying coach. You're year by year. That's kind of my point. But
I think it's a dynamic conversation of it too. Like who had the most power? Zach, you highlighted that with last year with Nathaniel Hackett. It would have been a little bit different as the first time head coach is coming in. If he were to try to make those decisions, it's going to look a lot different on how you have to go about doing so. Now that the power's out of Russell Wilson's hands, we're seeing firsthand how the Broncos ownership group and the Broncos head coach are able to kind of balance that. Patrick Chiodo says, oh no, we're still talking. Yeah, we're still talking about him. I haven't had a chance to walk through my feelings with that. Thanks for stopping by, Patrick. But the idea is that the dynamic shifted enough. And that's the answer to your question, Joey, is that it was safe enough to do so. It would have been handled very differently last season. And it's a big news story, Patricia. That's great. I didn't type that. That was not me. My hands were up here as I was gesturing towards the camera. Anywho, I don't see anything out of the Broncos right now that makes me feel better or worse about the situation. I think the Broncos kind of shot the bed when they made this decision, when they did, but now understanding that the NFL Players Association had to step in when they did. There's a lot of talk about timelines and time frames and why it seems a little sus from both sides. At the end of the day, guys, reading everything that you see out there and trying to form a decision based solely on that is a very dangerous hobby to undertake because everyone's fighting for their side and their PR related to all of it. So as we have a conversation about it, Victory Lap says, I'm conflicted. I am also conflicted. And I think it's important to note that that does happen, that it's not black and white. There's a lot of gray. Both things can be simultaneously accurate, but also give you a different amount of thoughts. When it first happened last Wednesday, the conversations that I was having was making me feel a little bit bad about the situation. And now, as I decidedly have walked through everything that's been reported, we don't know. We don't know. And I think the team has to make the decisions that best suits them moving forward, and that they have the right to do so. And the player has the right to be upset about it. But I think we have a lot of Russell Wilson baby photos to undertake as the offseason takes place. Patrick said, I think the team has every right to ask him to move the date of his guarantee. And he also had every right to say no. So Patrick also audibles or echoes my audible. Zach.
And I don't know what people, I guess, want the Broncos to do in this situation. Just sit him on the bench without negotiation, I think, is what people are saying is preferable. And hey, teach their own. I would rather be given the option. And I understand it's two shitty options. The other option is if you don't negotiate, you're going on the bench. And I get that. No other player has been given that option. This has come about before, and those players were immediately thrown to the bench. Russell Wilson having 7 games after a 1-5 start to rebuild his stock, that going into a year where he's going to be a free agent, make him a more coveted commodity. So not money wise, but he'll at least have a wider choice of landing spots, I think was beneficial to him. He would have not gotten that choice if the Broncos didn't come to him this way. Again, the Derek Carr and Jimmy Garoppolo had no negotiations with their teams. Their teams just threw him on the bench, and that was it. And it hurt their negotiating power come their ensuing off seasons. But that Jimmy Garoppolo's value this offseason is a lot lower than it otherwise would have been. So I don't know. And as a result of this, no other player is going to get this opportunity. If you're a future GM, and this will happen again, and you have a player on an injury guarantee who's underperforming, you now know, don't try and negotiate with them because it's going to open up an NFLPA problem. Just throw them on the bench, and there's nothing they can do about it. Because guess what? It is for performance. If you're good enough, they don't mind paying you the injury guarantee. They're going to keep playing you. So for this problem to even arise, the team is going to have a very strong legal argument for benching you based on performance reasons. It's been framed as a threat. And so I think people think like the Broncos were being evil here. It's an unfortunate reality of injury guarantees. Injury guarantees incentivize the team to bench you because that's the only surefire way to protect you from football injuries, is to have you not play football. But normally the players with those guarantees are good enough that it's not a problem. If you're not good enough, then the team's going to consider benching you because you negotiated for a part of your contract that incentivizes being benched. I don't know. That's how it works.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I don't have anything to add to this one. I've spoken enough about Russ and that whole situation.
Well, it's a good thing I'm driving the show, Joey, and I was just about to move off of that. Although, if you want to hear what the boys think the direction is for this team moving forward, Let's Talk Broncos released a video yesterday where you can hear about all of that. So I implore you to watch that after you're done here. Don't switch over right now. And while you're here, like and subscribe to the channel. Please like the stream. It helps us out. And we enjoy talking Broncos with all of you. Let's talk a little bit. We're going to do bold predictions and score predictions on Friday, as is normal for the last game of the season. Guys, I'm feeling a little nostalgic here. I feel like we're running out of time to talk about the Broncos. But worry not. We'll be here during the offseason covering anything and everything. The Raiders doesn't elicit a lot of reaction from me right now. I don't think that there's any rivalry talk. We're kind of just trying to survive the rest of this season. But the Broncos actually have a big storyline and a narrative writing on this, that Sean Payton wants to win 9 games. And they have the opportunity to have a winning season, which is exactly the type of optimism you want to see going forward, because there was a time during the season when they were 1-5 that we thought they could potentially have 4 wins, maybe 5. 9's a big deal. 9's nearly double that for all those math nerds out there. I also can add, but I had to hold up all both of my hands to do that. My cat's having an asthma attack. So Joey, go ahead and tell me about your thoughts moving forward into the Raiders game.
Yeah, I think this is important too. This would be the first time the Broncos have a winning record since what was it, 2016? So this is a big deal. I think that anyone that wants to point out, Sean Payton sucks, man. Look at all this craziness going on in the Broncos organization. It's doom and gloom right now. The Broncos are about to have their best squad since 2016. I think that's a massive improvement. I mean, that's about Zach. I don't remember what we had the Broncos at to begin the season, but it couldn't have been far off from nine.
I think we were all. I think it was like a 10-7, 9-8, 8-9 cascade is where we were at.
I mean, I like that. That's a great thing, man. That's really good, especially because now I look at the roster, and I don't know if I think the Broncos roster is as talented as I thought it was then. I don't know if I do. I think there were some standouts, like Cortland Sutton played better than I thought he would. I was hoping more from Mike McGlinchey. There are some players. I was hoping more from Javonte Williams. I thought the Broncos would be more talented, and they still got to the 9 wins, right? So that's a big deal. Or they haven't got to the 9 wins yet, but that's what makes this Raiders game a big deal. I want that win. I'm Mr. Draft guy. I'm always, hey, just lose. Like I've been that guy where if you're not going to make the playoffs, just lose. It's hard for me to see the benefit of that, but this one is different just because of where the Broncos organization has been. It's been terrible. This would be a huge shining light on things are changing for them to have their best season since 2016. So I'm firmly in camp. Go out there and try to win. The Raiders and Broncos, I don't know. I think that this is the last game of the year. I don't think either side is really sitting there thinking this is a game breaker for maybe for Pierce.
I disagree.
Maybe for Pierce on the Raiders side, honestly, because he's fighting for his head coach job, and the Raiders have played a ton better with him as the head coach. But for the Broncos, like I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world, but I would go out there and I would kind of, hey, where'd the Joe Flacco, his last hurrah that's going on right now? Fuck it. Let's go out there and ball. You know what I mean? Let's go out there and try some things. Let's try to win this game.
Yeah. I think it's huge for Antonio Pierce. The reaction it gets from me, Bree was saying, it doesn't get much reaction from her. I'm terrified about this game. I'm very worried about this. I don't just because I don't want to see them lose to the Raiders again and keep that streak going, but also because I think this could set up a lot of really annoying offseason narratives. And the final game of the season, or like the final stretch of the season, often colors our discussions for like the next 8-9 months. And I think it could be really ugly here. The Raiders defense is a top 5 unit in terms of EPA per play since Antonio Pierce took over. The other teams in that top 5 are the Browns, the Dolphins, the Bears, and the Broncos. The other 3 of those teams, the Broncos and the Raiders excluded here, the other 3 teams are top 5 in success rate too, meaning they're stably good defenses down to down. The Raiders and the Broncos are in like that same 11 to 12-ish range in success rate. So they're way worse in terms of down to down, but they're right up with other teams overall in terms of like value created. That's because they're the crazy turnover teams. We've seen it with the Broncos. The Raiders have been doing the same things. We just haven't been watching it as closely. Those crazy Jack Jones pick sixes where he one snatched it from, I think it was the Patriots. He had an awesome one against, and then he memed on that kid against the Chiefs. They're creating a lot of value defensively, and this could be a game where Jarrett Stidham, I think, looks a little ugly. It could be like a multiple pick six, maybe some crazy fumbles or whatever performance. I'm not hoping for it. He did have 7 turnovers in his 2 games as the Raiders starter last year. And I'm just worried this Raiders defense that loves Antonio Pierce, I think understands that if Antonio Pierce wins this job against a division rival at home to sweep the Broncos and like cement that streak, I think it's very likely he gets that job. And they're going up against yours. I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but I am very nervous. We're going to hear 8-9 months of like oh my God, the spark was fake. The Broncos are done for. The head coach is washed. And I think it'll kind of be a little too much off of one game, but I'm worried it's coming.
The Broncos either way are still like, I like saying it's going to be their first winning season since 2016. They would still have the most wins since 2016, whether this be a win or a loss. I just want to throw that out there.
Oh no, we're all about being optimistic. I think it does matter. I think it matters for a lot of people. I think it matters for Justin Simmons, who needs this winning record, needs to be a part of a winning team. I know it doesn't mean anything going forward. And Zach, yeah, I think we were all very level on how many wins. I think that 8 and 9, 9 and 8, etc. was you could shuffle that around, and that's how we felt to start this year. But Christopher Hartz has beat the Raiders. That is all. That's all that matters. I don't know. I don't think that I have a lot. If they win or lose this game, it's not going to change the way that I feel. But Zach, you said something very important about moving forward and how we talk about this team and kind of the vibe of the conversations moving forward for 3 months after the Broncos season ends, because we'll still have football and we'll still be talking about other teams and maybe directions in which the Broncos will go, etc. But it'll very costly color the tune of our conversations. My voice will be the same. I'll still sound like I'm super depressed about everything as I talk about this team. But the idea is that we'll have less to kind of rally around. This is a big game. This is an ending a streak. The Broncos have done a tremendous job ending streaks and records all over the place. But I think it's important to note this will change the way we're talking about this team. A winning record is a winning record, just as wins and losses get tallied up in the columns. What's the biggest contributor to the outcome of the game on Sunday? Is it the quarterback who's played a handful of games in the NFL? Is it the Raiders defense? The Raiders have a lot to play for, and you both walked through why. What contributes to the outcome of this game?
Zach, I'll let you go first, man.
I mean, just a gut feeling. I kind of feel like it's the run game. That's something they've gotten going under Antonio Pierce. The first 8 weeks of the season with Josh McDaniels, they didn't have 100 rushing yards in a single game. They went over 85 just once. Since then, they go 125, 148. 36 and a loss to the Dolphins, then back the next week with 123, 56 and a loss to the Vikings, 124, 157, and then 84 this past week and a loss to the Colts. Some of that is just the game script. You're playing with a lead. You're going to be running more. I don't want to fall into the old adage of like, run the ball 20 times to win the game. But I do think this is a Broncos front seven that is not great at tackling, that also tends to get bullied by good rushing attacks. And if you get Josh Jacobs going in this one, you're in trouble because Aiden O'Connell's not a great quarterback. A crazy stat from last week's game. He didn't complete a pass after the first quarter, and the Raiders beat the Chiefs. It's insane. That's because this defense is good. It's opportunistic, and they've got a good run game. If you can, that was 2 weeks ago. They played the Chiefs. But that stat was from that game. Nuts. If you can stop the run game and force Aiden O'Connell to beat you, I feel pretty good about the Broncos' chances.
Yes, I agree with you. You're going Raiders rushing game against the Broncos defense is yours. Mine is going to be Broncos quit game. I think I've kind of given up on the idea that Javonte Williams is going to be a really efficient runner this year. Obviously, we have one game left, and he's proven, and the Broncos as a whole have proven that that's just not going to be a possibility. And I think the quit game is pretty much just an extension of the run. That's been a struggle this entire season with Russ at quarterback. And Stidham, you saw more of it this last week where it's like, okay, he's processing right. He's not just gunshot at throw the route. He's seeing the route. The accuracy is all over the place. And like somebody in the comments said, Stidham quick passes to keep Crosby at bay, of course. Yeah, that helps as well. All of that. So I think I'm going to go quick game. I want to see more of that involved. I mean, that's a Sean Payton staple. Let's go.
Alex does YouTube says Zach's the nicest guy in Denver. He's never spent a minute with you, Zach, but I think he's got you on the nose with that one.
Person.
I'm so
kind
nice.
of a
I am so nice, guys. I am so nice.
Yeah, just follow him at Zach Seegers. And you'll see how nice he is.
Zach_Seegers. If you follow Zach Seegers, you're getting some random ass topics over there. Victory lap beat me to it. Sutton back for the game. He's anticipated to play. And I think that's a big determiner for the success of Jarrett Stidham. I think the offense.
I believe the first person on that was LTB's own Mario Vitanzi, for what it's worth.
I don't have the banner ready, but yes, shouts out to the Mario Vitanzi. Patrick Chiotti said we need evil Zach Seegers back. Unfortunately, that is also a Mario Vitanzi, and he lost the passwords to all those accounts. So Zach Seegers, evil Zach Seegers will probably never make a resurgence.
Thank God. Evil Zach Seegers.
Wait till we get Jacoby Brissett.
Is that where all the tweets are going to be originating from? You're just going to start.
It's going to be scorched earth. I think Mario created Evil Zach Seegers back when he was making fun of my Drew Lock hate, and Evil Zach Seegers is like batting 1,000 right now. Wait till Jacoby Brissett comes in here and throws for like 40 touchdowns. Oh my God, it's going to be a nightmare for everyone else.
It's a strange hill to die on, but I support you in all of your dreams and hopes and.
It really is. That's a great call. What the hell are you doing trying to die on the Jacoby Brissett hill? You're not even a Bronco yet. Can we give it a sec?
Because I'm going to be so vindicated next year. I'm going to be so vindicated next year, and I'm going to be so happy.
You get to run through the streets with Patrick Chiotti if that happens. But honestly, I hope it's the mean streets of Portland instead of the mean streets of Denver. So you're going to have to go visit our old friend, Patrick Chiotti, if that happens.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yes.
Same related? Kind of Raiders related, but it affects the Broncos, right? Because we're in the same division. Do you think they should, if you were running the Raiders franchise, should they keep Antonio Pierce?
I wouldn't want to run the Raiders organization. And here's what gives me pause. They should absolutely keep Pierce, but I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to fall onto the old ways and tradition of fucking things up. And I don't think they're going to go with the coach that everyone's rallying behind, the coach that has nothing but pride and passion for the Raiders organization, which is not hard to find, but they need to stick with Antonio Pierce. I could see them going back and scooping up some of those old coaches that are just going to run this further into the ground. I don't think they will, but they absolutely should. Zach.
Yeah, I think they probably should have kept Bisaccia when he put off his magic. I get kind of why they didn't. I think this one's even harder to get rid of because Bisaccia, some of that was just like positive vibes after the Gruden era. The fact that they're looking to bring Gruden back is insane to me. The other option being Frank Smith. I think that might be interesting, him learning under Mike McDaniel.
Does thinking about bringing Gruden back?
Yeah, that's a very and it sounds like it has real legs. So like out of the options that seem on the table, I think Antonio Pierce is definitely the best one. It's not just like good vibes leading the way, although I do think like that has a place. The defense is also playing like dramatically better. They're one of the worst defenses in the league. Antonio Pierce takes over. They're a top 5 defense. I would, roll with that. Also, you don't have a ton of money if you're Mark Davis. So even if you want to make like a splashy hire, you're going to be stuck in the same problem you've been these last few times where you can't fill out a super exciting staff around those options. I would run it back with Champ Kelly and Antonio Pierce.
Yeah, I would too. I think there's something to that. Former NFL player, Josh McDaniels really didn't like him at the end there, which gives me great hope that he's an awesome coach as well. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I think the shade that Josh McDaniels will continue to get on this show makes me laugh. And then I want to start talking about ceilings and floors and expectations and all that stuff. But I'll move on before this goes off the rails. Guys, anything to add on what you're looking forward to for this final game of the season, or anything that's been grinding your gears since we all last got together? Because it has been a couple of shows.
I do think Stidham's performance matters. I think that if he goes out there and he just really has that bad game, kind of what Zach was alluding to earlier, where, he does have a pick 6 and multiple turnovers involved. It's not good. I think that Stidham right now, honestly, is competing and trying to show off for why he should be the starting quarterback of the Broncos next year. He's the one guy already on the team. His contract runs through next year. There's plenty of possibility that they're just like, hey, we might as well just keep the Stidham guy around because we don't want to give anybody else the money. We're okay not being that great next year, blah, blah, blah. But if he goes out there and he just plays atrocious, there's going to be no shot of that. So that's something to keep in mind is like, we're actually really evaluating Stidham this next game. That's real life.
It is. Colton Coop wants to know, and I'm going to use this as the question of the day. Do you guys think Josh McDaniels wears visors in his personal life? I'd like to think Josh McDaniels is wandering around his house folding laundry and trying to put on a fitted sheet while wearing a visor because it paints a funny picture. Also, I think Sean Payton does too. So whatever you want to take from that comment.
Yes, I think they both rock the visor. Like when Sean Payton is feeling miserable about getting the sushi he chose to get, I think he's wearing a visor. I think Josh McDaniels wearing a visor while he's like yelling at his kids or whatever he does in his free time.
Yelling at his kids is wild, just to accuse a man on a podcast. As I noted, we'll be back on Friday to do bold predictions and score predictions for the game. Rally around us and give us your bold predictions so we can send that segment out in style for the year and season of 2023 as we move into 2024. Tomorrow, there'll be the Thursday show. Frankie's film hopping in the chat.
It's going to be Robbie's show, Robbie and Frankie's full field read, first episode.
Oh,
that's going to be very first episode of that. They're going to be evaluating every single Broncos snap, offensive Broncos snap. I'm so looking forward to this. I'm going to be tuning in. If you guys like their film evaluations or if you follow either of them on Twitter, Bree, take it away. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, please interrupt me because I forgot. I got so centered in my bit that I always do that I forgot that we're debuting a new show, and I'm super excited to watch that too. Also, the amount of work and everything, the way that they're able to give that information to everybody is so not easily digestible, but it's like fun too. Like I enjoy watching what they do and I learned so much from it. So I'm really excited for this series from Frankie and Robbie. So that's actually going to be Thursday. Friday, we're back for bold predictions. Zach will break it down one last time for a post-game reaction. Everyone's saying Happy New Year. I forgot we were in a new year. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. We took some time off and some vacation. And guys, I'm ready, reinvigorated and really excited to be here with you. Last year, I got emotional. This year, I have no feelings. Zach, anything before we get out of here?
Well, I mean, I love that sign off, but I just say, if you're not watching Frankie and Robbie's show, take a look in the mirror. I don't know. What are you doing? You're a Broncos fan and you have an incredible resource at your disposal and you're being wasteful. You're just letting it wither away. Why are you doing that? That's so dumb. There's no one on the beat doing what Robbie and Frankie are doing. We had it like a few years ago. There were some people who would do Broncos X's and O's breakdowns. That doesn't exist anymore. Robbie and Frankie are the only ones doing it. They're going through every single play of Jarrett Stidham. It's not what a resource. You can be one of those people on Twitter telling people to watch film, except you've actually watched the film. You're one of the very few people that have seen it for yourself. You're not just saying the line. Watch the show.
Yeah, you're not just believing Zach Seegers.
Yeah, come at me.
Your fan, Zach. I'm just kidding.
Oh my God. I don't know why I highlighted that one. All the comments were going too fast. Heartless Spicy Brie is the best breed. That's what I like to hear. It only encourages me further. We'll get you out of here and we'll see you next time. Peace out and talk Broncos.
Love you guys.